Hey, what's happening? Before we jump into the show, I wanted to see if you had any music on a hard drive. You have a band, you have a project, and you want to self-release your own music. Well, there's an easy way to do it. You can go to distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate and go get your music up on all the streamers. You keep 100% of your royalties, and you can get 30% off by using this code. It's a great, easy way to get your music up on the streamers and share it with your fans, your friends, your family, your mom, your dog, everybody. Everyone wants to hear it. But go to distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate, HYPHENATE, and send me the link. I want to hear it too. Send your mom the link. Send your dog the link. They all want to hear it too.
I'm like the opposite of a gearhead. I find like noise toys and I'm like, ooh, this is fun. This is great.
What's happening? Thanks for tuning in to Hyphenate with me, your host, Randy Randall. This is our show for Thursday, February 6th. On today's show, I'm so fortunate to be joined by the loud, noisy, experimental, spooky band Haunted Horses. Justin Pearson from The Locust and many, many other projects hit me up about them to see if I wanted to interview them because he is putting out their latest record on his label 31G. So I'd interviewed JP a little while back, probably almost about a year ago. And, we've kept in touch, and he's got a great podcast as well, Cult and Culture, here on the Ruinous Media Network. If you'd like to hear more from Justin, you can listen to him there. But he recommended I check out Haunted Horses, and I thought they sounded awesome. It's very kind of goth, industrial, noise, spooky, aggressive, loud sounding band, and they're based out of Seattle. You can find more of them on their Bandcamp, hauntedhorses.bandcamp.com. You can also go to their website, Spooky Ponies. That's why I was laughing when I said they were a spooky band. They also have their Spooky Ponies website, and you can also follow them on Instagram, haunted_horses. And don't forget, you can also go to 31G.com. That's all spelled out. THRR. Oh, sorry. If I could spell it out. THREEONEG.com. And you can buy their records there as well. They are awesome. They also got a KEXP live in studio performance out on the interwebs. They are a cool band, and they'll be touring and playing hopefully a town near you soon. I was lucky to sit down with Collin and Brian from the band for a little bit. Collin's mic, now when I was listening back to it on the edit, was a little clipped. There was little weird funky dropouts. I don't know, it's almost like, if you're on a phone call somebody and you lose the end of their sentence. So bear with us in the audio department region. And Brian was just on for a little while in the middle there as well. But it's a good talk. It's a good story. I liked sitting with them, talking with them. I like listening to them. So I hope you will like that as well. I hope everybody else is just doing good out in the world. It is a wild time. Plane crashes. Apparently Elon Musk has control of the budget of the country. That can't be bad, right? Lots of fun, exciting things going on in the world around us. Here in Southern California, we are recovering from the fires. Reach out, support your people in Southern California. I know there's been a lot of great, incredible humanitarian work and just general charity going out to all of these communities who so badly need it here in Southern California. If you go to my Instagram, I have a link in the bio for a couple of very quality places where you can send money directly to people who have suffered. There's some Kickstarters who have not been fully funded. There are three different pages there, 3 different links. There's ones to specifically for musicians and musical artists who are looking to rebuild after the fires, and another one for communities in Altadena. So if you still got it in your heart, if you have not tapped out yet on supporting these incredible people who need our help, you can do that. You can go to my Instagram. It's at Randy S. Randall, and find the link in the bio there for all of these great causes. So Without further ado, let's go head over to the interview with Collin and Brian from Haunted Horses. Thank you, JP, for setting this up. Love it. Collin from Haunted Horses, how's it going? Thanks for jumping on Hyphenate. How you doing today?
Doing pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, I love the new record. It sounds brutal.
It was quite a journey.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, basically we wrote a lot of this record when we all had been living in Seattle for probably the past like 15 years or something. And then this past, I'd say over a year now, it's been about 2 years ago, I relocated down to Portland, Oregon with my wife. And then Mike, the drummer, relocated to Denver, Colorado with his wife. And so life kind of pulled apart, but we still like to create art and work together. And so it kind of created a new working function where, we would just pass back and forth riffs, drum riffs, sounds, and ideas that we were kind of working on, and then collaborate together and just really pass back and forth, which was a bit more of it's kind of a tedious project or process, just because, I don't know, we're not in the same room. You don't get to test things out. You're just like living in your headphones for a period of time. And so, yeah, I feel like it felt kind of disconjointed at sometimes, but I feel like as we like had all the songs together, it felt right. It had a nice flow. All the songs seemed to kind of capture like the same kind of essence that, I don't know, felt like a good continuation from where we had left off with our previous record.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big sort of development. It's been about 5 years, 6 years of the band, and each record it seems to kind of you're stepping up the game, I guess, to one degree or another. I don't know if that's the right way to think of it, but there's more complexity or depth to it.
No, definitely. Oh, here's Brian.
Hey, hello. Brian, how's it going? Thanks for jumping on Hyphenate.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. Yeah, we started recording. We were just talking about writing remotely. This is a new experience for everybody in the band. How was it with you? Where are you located?
I'm here in Seattle.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the first time that I've had this experience in the project, and it's been interesting to adjust to the workflow, but I think the thing that's really cool about the way that Haunted Horses put songs together is, Collin and Pelly sort of already had that workflow with like building out sound design and kind of documenting their demos and things like that. So it was kind of an easier switch than I thought. And I think that it actually opened a lot of doors for extra creativity, kind of approaching from a recording element almost first, and like knowing how we wanted those things to sound on record. And then we were able to adapt that to its maximum potential live in the room. So it was cool to open some doors. Definitely.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely. Collin, how did the project, first start? I guess we'll kind of start from how it started, and then so we kind of appreciate the amount of stretching and progress.
Yeah, I mean, me and Pelly have been playing music together probably since we were like 15 years old or something like that. So quite a long time. So I ended up moving up to Seattle, and we started working on what would become Haunted Horses, and it was mainly guitar and drums, and just I used loop pedals to create walls of sound around the drums. So that was kind of how we initially started, just how to sound bigger with less. We wanted to try to be the loudest Seattle band with that. So that kind of led us on journeys of just working with loops and samples and things like that. And yeah, it just slowly built up to, we wanted to get more diverse and more creative with our sounds and sampling, especially after our first record, Watcher, which had some songs that were really fully just noise based around beats. We wanted to kind of incorporate that more further as we went, which resulted in Dead Meat, which was that was before we had bass or anything. So it was just like sounds and drums and noise, which, is a vibe. And so that's just adding bass later to kind of really root everything down within the songs, which really helped it take form.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the noisy guitar drum duo with loops and
I
You get it?
yeah. I mean that's yeah, and being loud is always fun too. I mean, over the years, how is the volume level gone? Is it
it's
is it an issue?
It's been I used to play out of these two like sun pillar cabs.
Those are great. Yeah, like 412s on top of each other. Yeah,
Exactly.
instead of side by side. Yeah.
Yep. And that had a beautiful tone. And then we also had bass during that time for Watcher. And no, I think we got louder when we started moving to the samples. We were able to control the frequencies a little more beyond just guitar, bass, and like really have some sub hits in there and just all kind of oppressive sounds.
And when you talk about sampling, are you sampling other tracks? Or are you sampling stuff you did yourself and kind of like self-sampling and looping, or what's the range of that, or what's that process like?
We started out where like when I was doing guitar, it was more live looping. So create a loop or add pedals. So I had Line 6 classic one, and then just the Boss looper. So one would just loop like guitar sound. One I'd use tonally, which kind of I would use it to create lower tones within the guitar mix. But yeah, I moved over. The first piece I got was that it's the Korg sampler, I think of the micro Korg sampler. And so that got me playing with just doing some simple sound design where I was like, I want to sound like this. And so I ended up bringing it to the practice space. So we're like, all right, Pelly, let's jam. Here's the sounds I have. And so it was basically like play drums and we'll make sounds, which was like the most backward way to do something, but it was fun at the time, and it helped us kind of evolve that side of things.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, yeah, we always did a thing with No Age where it would be like some days would be songwriting, some days would just be making sort of like palettes of sounds. You know what I mean? They're just those days are just like, I don't know, I'm too cynical, or everything just sounds like garbage. Let's just make a bunch of loops and we'll store those, and then on a day where we felt more inspired to write a proper song, then we had this like kind of treasure box full of like sounds and weird things. And eventually I learned about so the basic idea of a key of we like, oh, well, this one sounds good because it uses the same notes as the other one, or complementary notes. It was not obvious at first, but there were some moments of like, I think these sound good if they use the same notes in the chord. Yeah.
Got into that maybe on this last record.
Well, there's a few things where we use that dissonance on purpose, where you're just slamming those sounds that are in the wrong key together, and that's how you get that sound,
Oh, yeah.
Some of it you just have to mash together and see what happens, right? That's the fun of messing with samples.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, they're kind of that layering effect. Yeah, you never quite know. So yeah, there's something almost good about not knowing, or just kind of listening with your ears instead of like, well, in theory says this should go together, but you're just more like, I don't know, this thing. Let's slow it down. Let's pitch it down or pitch it up, and just
sometimes the way that this band is abrasive, it's like you want things that don't work. You want something that's punishing because it's not right. It's uneasy. It's a little unsettling. You're building textures where it's meant to like make your skin crawl a little bit. You can't do that by emphasizing harmony necessarily.
Sure. Right.
So.
Yeah.
It's going the other way. Have you had the experience in sound check where you have to check the samples or the lines, and you just send like the grossest, most blood curdling, hateful thing through the speakers by itself, and you're like, in the context of the song, it'll make sense, but everyone in the room suddenly just is like, oh no, what's this band gonna do?
Can we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
100% our sound check.
That's that.
It's just like.
Yeah, there's something really fun about that kind of moment of like, I know, dissected or torn apart. Each one of these things does not sound good on its own, but once the song happens and then you hear it, yeah.
Totally. Everything's dependent on the other thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's the beauty of the sound check, but especially going, if you're in an opening slot or working with a house guy that doesn't really know you, you can just tell like, all right, here's how, you always want to give them the preamble, like, okay, these are, because the best, 99% of the time it's always like, what do you got, beats? And you're like, not really. Beats is kind of textures, kind of sounds. I don't know. You'll hear it. It's gonna be really loud on your end, so put the pad on it, and then just kill us in the monitors and sort of fill in the sound in the room.
Yep, we're always like, oh, these samples are where the guitar should be, so put it at the guitar level, and then the bass will balance everything out. So that's always a little confusing for the sound guy. It's like, you want that really loud? You're like, yeah.
Yeah. We usually have to warn them. It will sound like a variety of car alarms going off simultaneously. But just bear with, just for a minute. We'll get there. We'll get there together.
Yeah. We had a song where like the hook was just this kind of like mangled feedback thing. It was called Come On Shamung, and it was this, but it was really the hook. It was like the melody of the song. It was the catchy poppy, sweet center of the song. But whenever we checked the sample and make sure it was coming through, because we didn't want to lose that part of the song. But it was this kind of just gnarly thing when you're like, or another song where it just sounded like screaming, like it works. So when it hits, it hits.
Yeah, we're gonna need to hear that when it happens.
Yeah, I mean, well, we've gotten really good, I think, over the years of just like not hearing any of it in the monitors, because it's like, okay, but I know what it does, because it isn't necessarily rhythmic, then no one really has to react to it. But I know it's being pushed out there. It's like, as long as you guys can hear it out there, like I can. I mostly need, and I'm sure you've, just, again, dealing with volume on stage, if you can kind of get a little kick, a little snare, maybe some of your voice.
Yeah,
it's about,
totally. You
have to learn to live with that, the quick changeover, like just a little bit of something. I mean, how is it now with bass, adding bass to this project, Brian? Like, what was that like for you, or where do you come from in other projects? You've been playing bass for a while. How'd you find yourself into this situation?
Yeah, I joined right after the guys wrote The Worst Has Finally Happened. So they write all the parts, and I just come in and I kind of check it out, and like we look at like the sound textures, like how to make the bass parts fit. I come from like a little bit more shred based kind of stuff, with Filth is Eternal and He Whose Ox is Gored in the past. But what's great about like this approach is it focuses really on like sound texture and delivering, like putting the notes right in the right place. And so I always talk about the way that I play my parts is about half like you play with the soles of your feet, because when you're on stage and you're pushing that much bass frequency, you feel where the subs are responding. So you're turning notes on and off just in the right place. It's not like about making a lot of like melody or shredding, playing some crazy whatever. It's about just slamming in the right place and hitting as hard as you can with the biggest frequency you can. And, so that's been a really nice approach. It changes the way that you think about stuff when it's not about playing all the notes. It's about playing one note. And Collin and I talk about like one of my favorite songs on the record is like 2 bass notes. But what you do is you just slam that, and that makes it like the whole part of the song that really like works, So I've really enjoyed that approach. I've enjoyed getting in and kind of, for me, it's like you have that one note, but you also build like the biggest sound that you can. Collin sort of had the idea of coming in and having the bass just mangled through synthesizers and distortions and stuff. And so we just go through like different pedals and like make it as nasty as we can, kind of do that tone nerd part of it where you get to like just bathe in the sound. So I just love like kind of dialing that and just thinking about it. It's almost meditative, how you go about building that. But yeah, I love it. It's one of my favorite things. I'm a bass player originally, so it's nice to get back to that kind of home bass too. So.
I mean, yeah, listening to the record, it's not always apparent exactly what the bass sounds are. I mean, there's a lot of, like you said, it's kind of soundscapey in a lot of ways, but listening to things, I'm like, there's low information there. That could be a sample. That could be a pitch down guitar. It could be a synth. It's not necessarily about the separation of like a Steely Dan kind of, here's the overtones of what the bass is doing. But I think I responded to that kind of idea of like not knowing who's playing what or where it's coming from. A couple of songs on the record that really stood out. The first one was Temple of Bone. That was something that I thought really kind of there was like almost like a pop hook to it or something, or that tempo. And what can you tell me a little bit about that song?
Yeah, sure. Temple of Bone, that was kind of like perfectly placed like in the record, where I feel like it's at like the midpoint, where the record, I feel like most of our records I try to keep like somewhat of a theme going throughout, so it kind of keeps it creatively balanced throughout the process. And this one, like, I don't know, it felt like we definitely were all like in the thick of writing everything, and it had been going, and it was like winter time, it was dark, and I feel like it just felt like we were producing like just a really moody track, where I think Pelly had those drums, and then we started writing the bass and the sounds for it, and it was more of a stripped down song than I think a lot of the songs where there's samples and noise going on. This one was a little more, I don't know, it feels like kind of just like peaceful but depressing, and like you're just really down in the darkest part of the record.
But there's something kind of sweet about it, you know, like in that, through that darkness, like that kind of opens up there.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I feel like kind of the point where we start to mark the uptick in the record, and we start to kind of come back out of the depth.
Yeah. How have like the influences changed and evolved like over the, you know, the discography and over the records? I mean, are you finding yourself revisiting things that were first inspired by, or I mean, as you guys evolve and kind of grow as a band, like what's that been like? Was there new stuff that you found yourself like, you know, not necessarily guilty pleasures, but things like, oh, okay, now I'm confident enough in sort of the, you know, as the band's going, to introduce different things, or how do you kind of deal with that?
Right. In regards to like song structures and things like that, particularly on this record, I think prior we just kind of had almost like song structures that felt like stream of thought, where it's just like something happens and it goes and then it ends, where I feel like we had more structure to some of those songs. So there's like almost, it feels like verse chorus, like even like on Temple of Bone. But I think most of the songs have a little more structure than previously. And I think that just came from, I think over the previous years, I feel like I've always been like a huge Nick Cave fan, a lot of like Birthday Party and a lot of the 80s industrial and things like that. But I really wanted to kind of figure out like, what is it about these artists' song structures that resonates with me? How do I incorporate that more into what we're doing, what I'm working on? So I ended up just, I don't know, I went through a period of time where I was just practicing writing songs. And so I was trying to apply that a little bit more to Horses while still keeping it with its general essence, I guess.
And then are you using different tunings, or is everything in standard tuning?
That song is definitely, I think we're mostly in C, but Brian definitely brought that bass to a whole different level in that song. I think brought it all the way down to A, which was something we were like, we were joking. And he's like, I think we could do it on this song. I was like, oh,
okay. We've been kind of threatening to go even lower for a while, but a lot of it is in C standard. So Temple of Bone, we like brought the subs and dropped it down a little bit further to just get it to really hit like in the last half of that song. So I mean, that was always fun to do. We did, anytime you go that low, it's kind of dangerous too, because, you know, you threaten your subs, they can't always handle it. We like to like kind of live on just the edge of like, is it going to blow it? Is it going to push the speaker too much? So that was a fun experiment to see where the line really was kind of in the studio.
That's wild. I mean, how thick of a low E do you have to put on a bass to get down to A? I mean, are you at like 60s or 80s? I mean, I don't even know, what do you get like?
Yeah, we use, for like the setup on all the stuff, like we use pretty heavy duty everything. Like Mike Pelly uses really big drums, you know, we use 15-inch speakers for everything in the band. For the tuning, it's in C standard. And then when we drop it down to A, you have to have something that can handle it. So it's like the low is like a 135.
Oh,
I think that's the lowest you can.
I'm so not a bass player. I'm like, what is it, 60? I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
oh no, you get in the hundreds of the basses. I forgot you can do that.
I think that's the heaviest one that you can get without like custom ordering something. So
that's ridiculous. But and then is your like the nut and saddle like kind of equipped for that? I mean, did you get a bass rig set up where it has like the nut, like the thing that holds the end of the neck? I guess for people that don't know what I'm talking about, in music world, but you know what I mean. The strings sit on a bridge, at the base of the guitar, and then a nut, is what they call it, on the top of where you tune the strings. So if it was with a bigger string, you need a bigger saddle, a bigger place for it to sit. So you've had to carve that out. I would have been, wow.
These guys will tell you I'm a gearhead, obviously.
Okay.
But I built out a couple bases for this project that are specifically about being the heaviest duty that you can kind of get. So one bass that we used for the recording, it's what is that called? A Fender Blacktop Jazz bass. So it's got P pickups instead of J pickups. So it's way heavier duty. It has just a super fat replacement neck that's like a Wenge neck. It's like a baseball bat. So it just pushes all this frequency, and it's tuned down as low as it can. I put a brass nut on it. It's basically like everything that you can do to fortify an instrument to handle these like big notes. And especially because it's like one note at a time, you just want it to be as much frequency as possible. Mm-hmm. And recently for live stuff, I got an acrylic bass that it's almost like 20 pounds. So it's just a really heavy material.
This is not the electrical guitar?
It just pushes all that sound all the way through. So what I was like, whatever I can do to just make it hit as hard as possible, like kind of built that out for it. So,
and then you show up at the club and they're like, yeah, we have this like 2 10-inch, subwoofer over here. We're gonna go ahead and DI you through that if we could. And
we learned that we can't use backlight. We blow gear, we break, destroy. We've set speakers on fire. Before I joined the band, I used to rewire their cabs on stage because things were failing, smoking, blowing up. Like this, I mean, the gear gets an incredible amount of punishment to make these sounds.
Yeah.
Tell me about this, Collin.
Oh, Brian has been saving our band for years. I feel like we've been friends with Brian at least like 6 years before he even joined the band. So there had been moments where we'd blown speakers. We went on tour with him, and like a jack was falling out of the back of the cab. Yeah. Got up and MacGyvered it on the fly. I don't think it even shut down. We fried amps. He's helped fix amps, and everything that's ever gone wrong in there to really save our ass. And we're like,
oh my god, we've done. Well, yeah, we've done some shows with Black Dice and then Aaron and Bjorn's other side project, Flaccid Mojo, and they're great with just it's just like, I think Black Dice would do 4 810s and like kind of do them on their sides like horizontal, and then just GK 800s, but they would just run through them. And I'm like, why? They shouldn't be breaking that often. Like, there's really, you know what I mean? Those are tanks of equipment. You know what I mean? That's relatively standard. Throw it off a building and it'll still work kind of stuff. Like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like, you're obviously. It's, you know what I mean? It's just sound. Like, there's, I've broken enough stuff and fixed enough stuff. Like, I really don't understand how misused it could be, or it's just old, I guess. And the other side of it too is just like, maybe you guys just need new things. Like, instead of spending $10,000 in used stuff, just spend $5,000 all new.
That was the lesson we learned. Probably at least A-heads, countless speakers, and then we finally switched over to like a stereo amplifier going through some Mesa Boogies, and it's been good.
knock on wood.
Yeah, that's one thing is we did have I've been working with the Mesa Boogie people for a while, and at one point Haunted Horses did switch over because like Collin was talking about, we used to have the Sun PA towers that everything was run through. Sounded really good, but there was definitely an evolution where like the next step for the band was getting like really fortified backline gear so that we could really push those frequencies and not be worried about things, falling apart in the middle of a show, because the stuff really does take sort of an unprecedented level of abuse. Like, sonically, the sounds that Collin makes are the sounds of gear failing. And even emulating that into other gear, the gear gets freaked out. It's like, you can see some stuff handles it better, So
that's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, it's a funny one. I think it's like anything, you have to break some eggs to learn how to make the omelet. You know what I mean? So I think it's not uncommon to just blow through, especially when you're starting and budget is so limited. It puts you in a position of you're just using cheaper or used or older things. So the ability for the things to fail is so high, regardless of whatever you're going to do. You could be playing nice on it, it's still just going to fall apart. So it's good. It's like having that first car when when you're learning to drive. Like, you want the car that it already has enough dents in it that you're not going to notice the extra ones you put in. But yeah, I mean, I remember starting out, I spent so much money on reconing speakers. I thought that was something you had to do. It's such a racket. This should be like illegal to like recone speakers unless they're really good speakers or you know what you're doing. I mean, I feel like the amount of 21-year-olds or 18-year-olds who are just throwing hundreds of dollars at these like speaker repair places is criminal. Like, it's not going to.
That was one of the first things that I did when I joined the band. Is I helped Collin and Pelly like recone some stuff and replace some speakers. At that point, we were replacing PV Scorpion speakers. Those were holding up for a while, but they definitely got thrashed eventually.
Oh yeah, sorry. What'd you say, Collin?
Oh, I think they're Black Widows.
Was it the Black Widows?
Oh,
yeah.
Black Widows.
Yeah, I mean, what dawned on me was, far too late in doing this stuff and touring and traveling and playing a lot was it's just as expensive to buy new speakers, especially for what we were doing, kind of this rock sort of thing. I didn't need anything particularly great than like whatever the amount of time it took to recone and the amount I was paying to recone a speaker. So reconing back then was like 20 years ago was like, $80, and the new speaker would be like $100. You know what I mean? So I was like, wait, just spend the $20 and this thing's going to work forever. And you don't have to worry about reconing some piece of shit speaker that came with some cabinet that your friend's dad gave you that,
I definitely have one bass cabinet where we blew it on a Haunted Horses show and I reconed part of the speaker and it has a rattle that I was like, oh, I'll fix this eventually. But what's crazy is the way that it interacts with the bass synth pedal. I keep it and I specifically use that cab with like a wonky recone because it adds just an extra shred to the way that the synthesizer responds through it. So, but it's, you know what I mean? Like, that's one of those situations where that speaker is going to blow. Like, it's going to go eventually because it's not meant to handle that stuff that way. So, but you got to find out. You got to push it to the limit.
Yeah, well, eventually I realized, too, a lot of the solid state stuff, you know what I mean? Like, you can just plug anything into anything. Like, so, I've had people like, well, what's the ohms? What's the wattage? Like, these solid state, especially in the bass world, it's like, it's going to match impedance for whatever is coming out of there. Like, I don't know if this is true or not, but it's in my experience. Like, with the bass stuff, it's relatively, like, plug and play. Like, all the modern solid state, power amps. Or, unless, I don't know, has that been your experience? I mean, it's a little bit more forgiving than you would think it is. Is that right? Yeah,
mostly. Most of the time, the bass amps, the solid state amps are like pretty, workable. Like, they'll detect ohmage and output their correct stuff. But it was like, that's part of what we're always dealing with. We're always blowing something up and having to like re-rig it together, like on the fly. So
oh my God.
We've been using the Mesa cabs have been really helpful. Finally moved over to like a nice big stereo power amp. But yeah, it's been a process to get there.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I bet you didn't think
I have to actually jump right now, but thank you guys so much.
Awesome.
It's been great to chat with you.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, great talking.
Good to see you.
All right. I'm glad we got to get into the gear world of the stuff. That's the underbelly of being a loud band.
Me too. I'm like the opposite of a gearhead. I find like noise toys and I'm like, ooh, this is fun. This is great. And then Brian's like such a blessing to be like, we can't do that, but we can do this. Like, okay, cool.
Kind of help you color within the lines. Make sure, like, okay, realize your vision. If you want it to sound like that, we're going to need to go ahead and just shave off all of this unwanted stuff you don't need there. We're going to filter it through. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's wild. So I guess in that regard, how did you make this record? Like, how did you go about recording? Obviously, we talk about like the writing was sort of passing files back and forth, but does that translate into the recording, the recordings as well, or how did you do that?
Yeah, so before we recorded, we ended up getting together and got into a room, practiced everything to get ready to go into the studio. We recorded this record with the same person we recorded The Worst Has Finally Happened with, Bob Cheek over at XX Studios. And we really liked how he was able to balance our frequencies and our sounds, which had been a struggle for the longest time trying to capture this project. And so we went back in the studio with him for, I think it was like 4 days. And then Pelly has all the stems ready to go with organizing from like the samples that we send back and forth. Brian has the bass parts learned and Pelly's doing live drum. And so we basically go to the studio, track the drums, and then we reamp all the samples, Bob there, and then he did the bass as well.
That's cool. Oh, you said SRX Studio?
XX in Seattle.
Oh, okay. Okay. Cool. Yeah, just looked. I didn't know him. Wasn't familiar with him, but
he's great. He's been he's worked with a number of artists like Tycho and a bunch of great artists that we'd been following over the years. And I don't know, we were just like a DIY band, so we had never really paid to go to a studio prior to The Worst. We'd always just done everything out of our practice space for the most part. And so it was it felt like jumping into a whole different world of, oh, it can sound this nice. So
that's awesome. Yeah, it's nice when you find a good collaborator like that really adds something to the project versus somebody you're fighting with, because being in a weird or sounding band or something that's sort of atraditional, you really could find yourself just battling technical people in that regard. Like, totally.
Like we'd worked with people that were like, oh, let me record like some demos for you or something. They give a mix for like, okay, it's like a mixing, trying to get everything in balance. But yeah, Bob just really got it, and I think he'd seen us live a few times, and I think he had a good idea to capture it.
That's awesome. And then tell me a little bit about working with Justin and 31G. How's that been? Is this the first record you've done with them, or you did others?
The Worst Has Finally Happened with 31G. Justin saw us in San Diego. I think it might have been just after we recorded the record, and so we were able to meet him and share with him the record. And yeah, he liked it and wanted to put it on 31G, which we were really excited. We've been following various Justin Pearson projects since, I don't know, for like over 20 years or something. Like it was an honor to get to work with him and be a part of the label, which, yeah. And so when we finished Dweller, we were actually sitting on it for a period of time because we'd finished it and we're like trying to figure out, all right, is this done? And then when we finally decided that the work was done, and we passed it on to Justin, who was happy to help us put it on track for release.
That's so cool. Yeah. I mean, he's put out so much stuff over the years. You know what I mean? It's
totally.
Really what kind of legendary label.
Yeah.
Man, well, it's awesome. I'm trying to think what's next, or where. I mean, are you guys touring in support or getting ready to put shows together? I mean, no, it's
yeah.
It sounds like, I mean, you've been kind of pre-pandemic into this sort of stuff. It feels like definitely the touring, routing and everything, and just the amount of shows and venues and places and people and everything has kind of been, a challenge. How is that facing you, or how are you finding that?
Definitely. I mean, we're only able to do like a short run on the Worst record. We were busy, and then we started diving right into this. But right now we're working on planning our schedules. That way we can do some runs of shows as soon as this comes out. So likely February or March we'll be doing some shows. We're trying to get over the East Coast, do something on the West Coast as well. But Yeah, right now we're currently in the planning stages of working to support it because the record comes out in January. So likely 2025 we'll be putting some fun runs together.
That's awesome. And then what does your live setup look like from your station with guitar and effects and vocals? Like what do you bring out on the road?
For me, I mostly have my vocals. I have like a vocal looper that I use. I have just general noise station of like a just like a tone generating, modulating oscillator thing.
What's that? Who makes that one?
It's I'm trying to think. It's like a Behringer, what's it called? Like Nova Star or something like that.
Okay.
Name of it's like a red box, and you just turn the knobs and
sine waves and kind of oscillators and yep.
That, and I have Electroharmonics. What is it? The 4-track looper.
Mm-hmm.
I've got my toys I play with at my station.
That's fun. There was this great company. What I got to look at. I think it was Jupiter FX. Is that what they were called? They were a Japanese like desktop synth. Oh man. I'll find it and send it to you. But it's really fun. I got. There's my little box. It's somewhere over here, but it's been so fun. It's like a 3 oscillator looper kind of in a pedal box. It was something I'd thought about for years, and when I finally found it, I was like, "Oh, this is awesome!"
Fun. Jupiter Effects. I'll write that down. Check it out.
Yeah, I'm trying, and I love it because it's just all black, and like a black box with nothing written on it.
Nice.
Anyway, I'll find it. It's the point where I was like start nerding out, like, oh wait, there's this thing, nothing. There's no branding on it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But that's super fun. And then for guitar, what do you running for that?
Oh, I'm not playing guitar on.
Oh, no guitar.
No guitar.
Oh, okay. Where was it? But there was guitar in the past.
Yeah, there was definitely guitar in the past. The Watcher, our first record, was all centered around loops and guitar. And then, yeah, after that, we started moving over to more sample based. But there may be some guitar coming back in the future. I've been playing a lot of guitar in the past like year or two, and so I'm hoping it'll start.
Find a way back in, and then you're also then triggering samples as well. So like the noise sort of stuff, the voice looping, and then is there like the sample sort of recall or playing in that? What are you using for the sample stuff?
We have the backing tracks for the samples right now because Pelly has to play to a loop. It used to be all live triggered.
Got it.
So yeah, as we got more complex with the writing and the sound structures, it made more sense to put a click on Pelly and have him play.
Got it. Okay, cool. And then he's triggering those. He's starting those and stopping those and going between songs. Cool. What is he using to trigger those?
It's the SPDX.
Oh, okay. Yep. SPDX. SPDX. That's like a drum pad sampler. Yeah. We've had that.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah, we first started incorporating that in the first record, but kind of in a similar manner to how you described. You just go in there and make a bunch of pads of noise and use them as writing tools in the future. And so we were very similar to that for a long time.
That's cool. Yeah, no, there's so much to it. I remember, it was funny when Dean and I first started No Age coming out. We were in a 3-piece band before, and then just went down. The two of us, we both got these little Behringer 4-channel mixers, and then just sort of loaded stuff up each channel with different things and trying to figure out, like, okay, is it this? Is it that? And the guitar, I think the first like 2 years of No Age, I ran the guitar all through this 4-track or 4-channel mixer, and then into the amps. And I was manipulating stuff and bringing stuff in and out and putting effects through sends and things, but not knowing really what I was doing. It was not as mature as that. It was very kind of just jaggedly throwing stuff in, like, none of it works. Something didn't work. And like, it's not panned. Yeah.
No, I remember. Yeah, no, I remember seeing No Age a bunch when I was living in California, and that was massively influential. And like, it's like, oops, and all that. Like,
oh man, that's you're too kind. The thing we ended up settling on was we did our second record with Sub Pop. We had a third person on stage triggering samples live. It kind of helped just because that record I wrote a lot like based on sample sort of ideas and loops, almost like using like a rhythm guitar track, but like from sounds, and I would be able to kind of do leads or counter melodies over it. But then we all settled on these Digitech Jam Mans. They're like little like stereo one pedals, and it was easier than they have the big 2 pedal ones, and there was just these like little guys, and then you could all back it up on micro SD cards. So then I would just we'd load them up, put them in sequence of what we needed for each song, and so our set list looked like math homework. It was like each song, each number of which samples are being triggered, and so I would now when we play live, I carry 3 of those on my pedal board, and Dean carries one of those and like a 404 kind of pad sampler that he can play with. But those Digitech things are great because they're basically just recall, and so you can arrange your loops, and then even I've been messing around with like the stereo sends of it. Like if you do like a mute on or off or an ABY box on so you can almost get like 2 samples that are linked up, but then you mute one and then put the other one in, so you can kind of get a 2 for 1 off of one cell of a loop.
Cool.
It's kind of fun in that way. Those are fun. But I like those as like just little tanks, because then you just have it all backed up on a hard drive, and then if the pedal gets stolen, gets stepped on, breaks for whatever reason, you can just put a backup chip, like go to Guitar Center anywhere, just get another one of those things, recalls, and then you just put the chip back in. It became the easiest plug and play kind of thing. So it's like the whole song doesn't go down, because I've had people like crowd surf off of the pedal board. They like step on the pedal board and jump off of it and back into the audience. And you're just like, oh, now the knobs are all broken. The whole thing's.
Oh man.
That's wild. But yeah, that sounds exciting. Well, I can't wait to see you guys live when you come down to LA. This probably will come out this will be out right about the time of the record, hopefully a little bit before. Get people stoked, go find it. Where do you want people to find you, to find out more and follow you? What's the best place for people to go?
Yeah, I feel like the best place to follow us for updates, probably Haunted Horses Instagram. I feel like we're mostly there.
Cool. Yeah. What's the name? It's just Haunted Horses on Instagram?
I think it's Haunted Horses _ Haunted _ Horses.
Is there another Horses?
I think somebody beat us to it, and I think he follows us too. It's like he's yes.
Oh well, but you got a couple there. You also got a Haunted Horses NYC, which is not you.
No, it's not us.
And then Spooky _ Ponies. Is that your backup in case you ever get canceled?
I think that's a backup. Yeah.
It's always good. You never know. You never know what's going to happen. Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it. Everybody go to Instagram, Haunted _ Horses, to see what the band is up to and when they will be coming to your city, state, county, and county fair. Great, man. Well, yeah, I appreciate it, Collin. Thanks so much for taking the time, and yeah, hopefully I'll see you when you're out in LA.
Sounds good. Thanks so much for having us.
All right, yeah. Take care.
Awesome. Yes, there they are, the one and only Haunted Horses, Seattle's very own, and now parts across all the great Northwest. Go find out more about them on their Bandcamp page, hauntedhorses.bandcamp.com. You can also go to 31g.com, that's spelled out THREEONEG.com, to buy their records from Justin's label. Thank you, Justin, for setting up the interview. You can also go to their Instagram at Haunted _ Horses. Also, don't forget spookyponies.com, their website. I think they also, as we said in the interview, they have a Spooky Ponies on Instagram as well as a backup just in case. So, yes, enjoy, get into it, buy the records, support them, go see them out on the road, go see them on tour. And I will see you all back here on Monday with Aaron Farley to recap it, everything that has gone on over the weekend. Hopefully, it'll be a pretty normal weekend. Pretty boring, nothing happening, nothing too exciting going on in the world kind of weekend. All right. Be well, be safe. See you then.
We usually have to warn them. It will sound like a variety of car alarms going off simultaneously.